Welcome, Walnut. I'm Lara, but you can call me Laz, your host for Walnut Wednesday. This is your reminder to be brave, be yourself, and know that you can make the world a better place just by what you decide today. Here, I'm going to share my weekly walnuttings with you on a Wednesday. Hi, Walnut. It is me, Laz, here for another episode of Walnut Wednesday. And this week, I've got my favorite banana on the podcast, Elliott Rose, indie author, amazing, successful witch. Welcome, Elliott Rose.
Thank you. It's exciting to be back. I always love coming on Walnut Wednesday.
I love our chats. We can chat for hours, as we have just alluded to off camera. But would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the Walnuts who have not met you yet before we get into it?
Of course. So I'm Elliott Rose. I'm an indie romance author writing paranormal romance, dark fantasy romance, spicy as all hell romance. And you also may know me from earlier episodes of Walnut Wednesday under my other pen name, Rose Toshiri, where I've written Soulpreneur. That was probably our last major episode we did together, I think, previous to maybe a couple of my book launches, I think.
Yeah, I think
it would have been kind of late last year, I think we did that. So we've been around the Walnut Wednesday block a few times, so thanks for coming and listening again, or watching along again. What else can I share? I am in the deep depths of releasing another book into the world at the moment, so it's been perfect timing to come on and have a little chat and come on and just share all the things, what you want to know about indie author life. And it's just a whole lot of fun. And I feel like every time we've talked on this podcast, it's been a really beautiful kind of next evolution of what it's like as an indie author, because it is such a fucking journey and it is such a wild ride. So much fun, but at the same time, there is so much learning with each book that comes out, each process, each time there's something new. It obviously keeps expanding a little bit more and a little bit more as my reader community, beautiful community, grows. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I'm so happy to have you back. I'm really looking forward to it. So without fighting around a little bit more, when this episode airs will be release week of book 3. So do you want to tell us what does book 3 feel like in comparison, in the preparations and doing all these sort of things in comparison to Sweet Inferno, the first little baby of the series?
Very first one. So my series that books are coming out in is called my Nocturnal Hearts series, and this is book 3, which is called The Queen's Temptation. And the series is an ongoing journey through the Nocturnal Hearts world. We have interconnected books, but they're all standalone, so they can all be read as their own little love story. Happily ever afters are guaranteed in my world. My little Piscean heart cannot handle anything but, and will riot if we have anything but a happily ever after.
There are a couple of touch and go moments there where my heart rips out of my chest, however, but
it doesn't mean to say that we don't have a terribly torturous journey to get to a happily ever after. This is signature Elliott Rose land after all. And I do quite often get those tags and comments and DMs from my wonderful readers who are basically midway through the most torturous part of the journey going, what the fuck are you doing to me?
I have been one of those, Walnut. Messaging you at 11 p.m. I'm supposed to go to work tomorrow. What are you doing? I'm crying.
I know, and cue my best evil laughter cackle going on, because I know it's all going to be fine in the end.
Yes.
But how we get there is the mystery. And I think a lot of my books, they're paranormal romance, they're dark fantasy romance. They've got a lot of dark elements in them. We've got gore, we've got blood, we've got explicit sex, we've got torture, we've got terribly, let's say, terrifying backstories for our immortal characters that are going on, because we've got witches, we've got shifter wolves, we've got vampires. You know, we have, well, we've got the Fae coming in now in the Queen's Temptation as well. So as the Nocturnal Hearts world grows, we get to meet more and more of the supernatural beings that exist within, you know, these different realms, and we're crossing into new territories, so to speak. And we've got ways that some of our characters have got the magical ability to be able to sort of just poof, magically appear between places, and then we've got others that are not quite as magically gifted or powerful, and you know, are relying on these other characters to be able to sort of either travel around or have other magically influenced ways to be able to travel between realms and things. So it's a lot of fun to add in all these layers and all these nuances, and be able to just kind of meet some more characters, add a little bit more texture and nuance to these worlds, get to know a little bit more of their own idiosyncrasies, I suppose, between different, I don't even want to call them races, but, you know, different groups of supernatural beings, you know. And that's one of the themes that comes up in The Queen's Temptation. This book is, how should we best describe it, Laz? It's a forbidden romance, is probably at the heart of it. We've got Niall of Nocturne, who we do meet in book 2, who is the brother of Lockie, our main character in book 2. And he has been sent off to the Fae Dominion, to the Fae Court, to assist with essentially being witch magical bodyguard to the soon-to-be crowned Fae Queen, who has suddenly come into her position after her entire kind of royal lineage was assassinated in earlier events prior to this book. So Niall doesn't know anything about this person because she's kind of coming out of left field. She hasn't been around the Fae Court at all. And forbidden romance ensues.
Oh, I just like, Walnut, if you're not actually watching this, I'm just sitting here just dork grinning because I'm like, it's like, yeah, you're right. How do I even describe this book? Other than it's hard for me because I like every single one. I love every single one, but I feel like I'm finally at the point where I can admit that The Queen's Temptation thus far has been my favorite. And because of multiple reasons. But it was the storyline that hooked me when you first not pitched it to me, but when you told me the rough, like what you've just explained to us, Walnuts, now, I was like, oh bitch. Oh bitch. Like, I don't know. And because we've already met Niall a little bit before, you can't, I think that's what I really love about this series as well, is that like you have a little taste tester of everyone who's involved, but then they get their own little storyline at the same time. So
they get their own little moment to shine. Some have to wait a little longer than others. That's probably one of the main questions I get asked, because we have these side characters, and, you know, in the case of the Nocturne siblings, we've got a couple of other siblings who have yet to star in their own book, and Bridget being one of them, the sister who is a seer and an enchantress and is one of the fan favorites so far.
Yes, she
in
is
all her impish, mischievous glory, because of course she can see what's going on, and she can see all, but she is bound to rules of non-magical intervention, essentially. So she's a very fun character to portray, but of course her book will be coming, but it's going to be, there's a few more cards to sort of move around, and a few more chess pieces need to move on the board before she's going to be coming to her own book, so to speak. So yeah, it's a lot of fun to write, you know, these side characters, knowing that they are going to come in at a later date. And I've really enjoyed being able to kind of explore with the freedom that an ongoing series gives you, because that's one of the things that again, maybe it's my little happily ever after heart, but once I get to know characters and really get comfortable with characters in a series, I find it hard to let them go, right? Like it's like having your favorite Netflix show and they announce that it's the final season coming. I think we've got like Mercury retrograde, like shadow coming in.
Oh my God.
Camera.
This only happens with like high intensical, I don't know.
Walnut, we must be in like an energetic vortex going on.
Yeah, it only happens when I'm getting down and dirty, not real down and dirty real life, but like when I'm getting into some serious chats on the Zoom. So yeah, it obviously just means that even my camera is so excited to hear from you.
Yeah, we've got like energetic downloads going on. Yeah.
I'd love to also like hear from you as well. Like you mentioned before how, you know, the magical powers, everyone is different, and how that kind of does reflect a little bit of the real life and how everybody's different and how we not use people, but, you know, we rely on each other for different things. Can you talk to that a little bit more?
So is that a thing?
Yeah.
It was something that I was really intentionally writing into all the characters, that while we might have these kind of bigger groups, you know, that we're referring to, witches as a whole, they all have their own individual abilities as witches, for example, and the same goes for the vampires, and the same goes for shifter wolves, and the same goes for the Fae, you know, that they might have the same sort of set of magical ground rules, so to speak, but they all cultivate in a really different way, and a lot of it is based on, you know, who they've been around, who they've been empowered by, their upbringing, but also, you know, gifts that they have received from source. In these books, we've got some who are kind of given extra abilities that they have to learn to wrangle, because, you know, when you're given something that is a unique set of gifts, there's no one else to really show you how that all goes down. So we've got kind of fun explorations of what it means to have power, but also to learn how to navigate that, learn how to understand that. Niall in The Queen's Temptation is an empath witch, and that was something that I really had a lot of fun writing, because myself, as a little highly sensitive baked potato, as Laz and I as I like to call myself whenever I'm messaging Laz, whatever highly intuitive, sensitive moment I'm having, you know, there's a lot of myself in his character that came through, in terms of being very open to taking on board the energies and the emotions and things, and being able to sense the emotions and energies of others. So there was a lot of me that went into his writing his character, and learning how to deal with that, learning how to navigate that, and then how that comes out in terms of his magic and how he accumulates it and has to handle the energies that are not his own, for example. And there are, you know, no spoilers, but there are things that come up in the book that are very directly connected to that. And then Ruby, our queen, our soon-to-be crowned Fae queen, she has come into the Fae court, the palace, after being brought up in a part of the Fae Dominion that is essentially ostracized from the main Fae society. In the Nocturnal Hearts world, the Fae are gifted with magic that is to do with materialistic things. They're gifted with magic that is highly connected to manifesting things that are of physical nature, you know. So it's kind of transpired in their culture that it's become very materialistic based. It's become very, I guess, obsessed with wealth and status, and, you know, the more opulent your lifestyle, the better, essentially. And where Ruby comes from is a sort of ostracized part of the Fae community known as the Dark Fae, who live a very wild, rugged, mountainous kind of existence. And Ruby has grown up learning to use her magic for manifestation of the things that she needs to survive, essentially, in the forest, in the mountains. And that's one of the things that I really love about her, because she's a little badass. She's a warrior. She manifests like knives and blades and knows how to fight. And, you know, that was her upbringing because that's the family that she was adopted into. She was raised with them. So, and again, no spoilers as to why she was adopted and raised by them. You'll have to read the book to find out. But yeah, that is those kind of things that's been a lot of fun to write. I have no idea whether I actually answered your question or not, but I feel like I went on a good tangent there. So
no, you really did touch on it. It was about how it's a reflection of kind of the people being different in real life, and I think that's why this book is one of my most favorites, because you know, we've said on previous episodes that there are pieces of you in each character that you write, but for me as a reader in particular, with both of the leads, I felt much of myself, because I resonate with like this high empathy and feeler of feelings and being a sensitive sausage, baked potato, feeling everything, and then also this like this badass biatch who's just like, you know, that's what I want to be. And on the inside, with this whole like, you know, deep feminine rage that we all to some degree feel, I feel like she's just so cool. She's just so cool. So I think that's how you've written these two is just it hit me in the feel so much more than other characters so far. I think that's
no, they were a fun pair to write, because you've got, you know, Ruby exudes a lot of strength, but also has her own, you know, sensitivity on the inside that she has to put up these kind of walls essentially to safeguard. And then you've got Niall, who is kind of perceived as the Joker, the rogue, the larrikin, because that's how he deals with being an empath. You know, he copes with that, with not taking things so seriously and putting on that front of the Joker, but deep down he's got a lot of sensitivity around that. And they really do come together and, you know, allow for each other to grow in their own unique ways. But of course, because it's the Nocturnal Hearts world, we've got a lot of external events that are kind of happening that add to the forbidden nature of them actually connecting, and whether or not they are able to connect on a deeper level, I think, is also one of the themes in this book.
Absolutely. And I think that's one thing that I really love about the series in general as well, is that it's not just like, it's not all about the spiciness. There is actually like a want to keep reading because you're so engulfed. And I think each book has kind of built on that world. Like, you're continuously giving us like a piece of the bigger puzzle, of the bigger storyline that is Nocturnal Hearts. And I think with the Queen's Temptation, it was like there was a bit more action, you know, like in terms of not like P&V action, but actually like, you know, there's a bit of battling going on, and, you know, like it was like it was a lot. There was a lot more thrown into us, like, you know, from those of us that had read book 1 and 2 as well. So
we could probably say as well that there is more P&V action in this book than there is in the other books as well, which is partly why I'm laughing so this book definitely ramps up the spice compared to the other books. You know, the other books are spicy, but this one does take it up a slight notch, which is something I think we've talked about before, and possibly even on the podcast before. What one of my goals is for the series, and I was basically like, I am my own competition for how each book can somehow dial up the spice, you know, each time
all
round.
The chili emojis for the next ones to come. Keep adding one, like a little sticker chart.
It's like, you know, that coming in for Sweet Inferno, you've got a little like dip your toes in the water, get a feel for what it's like. By the time you hit the Queen's Temptation, like you're in the deep end, and we're
getting dipped down.
We are going for it.
We are P and Ving all the way home.
Well, I think that's something as well that, like, it's very interesting in the world of kind of paranormal dark fantasy authorship, I guess, because my books are very character driven. So that is one of the things that the main, I guess, action within the books is driven by the characters and their relationship and things. And, yes, there are paranormal, kind of, it is a paranormal romance world, and it's supernatural beings and all the rest of it. But this isn't a world of like high fantasy world building. There is enough there to kind of whet your appetite if you love fantasy and castles and magic and all of those things. And I think that was actually something that you gave me some really great feedback on as one of my wonderful early readers. Was I was asking you essentially, like, do you feel like there's enough fantasy and magic in these books? Because obviously I'm looking at it very focused on making sure that the plot and the characters are the central things, and that is, the plot is something that I really heavily put a lot of focus on, because I want to make sure it's that story that keeps you wanting to read more and wanting to know what's coming next, and leaving you hanging at the end of a chapter, so you just have to do one more chapter.
You murder
my
me.
little private torture for my readers. But I did come and I think said to you, do you feel like there's enough magic and fantasy in this? Because I sort of sometimes worry that I'm so focused on these other things that I want to make sure I've got some perspective as to whether it's still coming through. So yeah, I really appreciate that you gave me the kind of nod on that one.
Yeah, no, I think it's really eloquent how you have captured all this. Oh, I think I remember that. And then we had this weird discussion about fairy wings and putting on outfits. I think that was when we were talking about that, wasn't it? But I really have this burning question at my butt that I want to ask you, which is a little bit outside of Nocturnal Hearts and the Queen's Temptation, and more potentially a little bit as an author, but as a reader as well, about reading and writing sex. Like, I think I've noticed that spicy books have become like a trending up and coming thing, unless you've been a diehard who as you are, have been there for the whole time. But what was it like to start writing sex scenes and then have somebody else read them? Like, was that awkward?
I won't say it was ever awkward. I think it was more, to be honest, I've never felt awkward about writing the actual kind of like intimate scenes or sex scenes or whatever. The bit that I always have felt more concerned about is my writing any good? Is the plot there? Like, does it read well? Does it keep the reader in the moment? So that's the stuff that freaks me out way more than worrying about somebody seeing like sort of the spice that I've written on the page, essentially, or the creativity of how my characters may or may not express themselves sexually.
Yeah, I think because it's a thing, right, where it's like it's not you, but it's you, and then the words on the page are written by you, but it's actually the characters. It's like this weird little head fight that I had, and
my brain has to come up with this sort of whole, I guess, because the characters tell me what they want, right? So it's like this is the fun part of being an author, is that people ask you, how much do you sort of plan for things? And to tell the truth, like I plot, I outline, but when it actually comes down to writing the scene, it's just kind of there. Like, the characters are driving what's going on. They're the ones having the conversations inside my head, and they're talking to me. They're telling me what's happening. So there is a lot that I sort of think might happen, and I kind of have a good idea of where something might go. But then when it comes down to actually writing it, it's very driven by them and their dynamic and their relationship and where they're at. And of course I get inspiration from a lot of other things that I read or see, or, you know, love. Obviously, I have my kind of range of authors that I love just reading the way they write, you know, kind of spice and erotica and things like that. But I also know what I enjoy reading as a reader, and that is something that has to have the plot and the character development there, you know, because we can all enjoy a very fast burn erotic novel or novella, but I often don't find those as, let's say, like captivating as something that has got the character development and the tension and the build. And, you know, like for me personally, like I love a good slow burn between characters, because it's that tension building that I love, you know, like I just, that if I can master that in my writing, I'm a very happy author, basically. And that's something that I'm always looking to try and get better at, you know, because that's the thing that really gets me. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are my readers who that's what they get as well. You know, that's what they're looking for as well.
Yeah. And can I just like lick your butt a little bit, because you actually really effectively do that. Like the tension that you create in your books and in your writing give me bodily reactions. Like I get a weird feeling, like from maybe like my thighs up to like under my boob. Like I'm just like, oh, when's it gonna happen? Like actual physical reaction to what I want to happen or what I anticipate is going to happen. Like you really do. It's so good. You do it so good. It's delicious.
It's like it's quite funny, because you can write about these characters in these very like intimate sexual situations, you know, and they might be, you know, say like you're writing a sex scene and maybe they're edging each other, right? Like, or one of them's edging the other character, like sexually. But like as an author, you're basically edging your readers like the entire time, because you're kind of like building the tension and then you're dialing it back, and then you're building the tension and then you're dialing it back. So it is quite funny when you're kind of thinking about how you're pacing these kind of things, right? When you're bringing it in, that it's like in this case with the Queen's Temptation, we've got tension building in a very different way to Sweet Inferno, and in a very different way to In Darkness Waits Desire, because, you know, in Sweet Inferno, it's a novella, it's a short story. So we had to get into the kind of spice very quickly. We had to have a fast burn between the characters, and it made sense for their dynamic and their storyline. In Darkness Waits Desire, we had a very, I guess like you could call it like a classic slow burn, where there was a lot of, I think, what does Niall describe it as in the book? Like he talks about the relationship building between them. And I think he says something like, his line is, Belle and Lockie finally gave in to eye fucking each other across the room, or something like that. And that's probably the best description of In Darkness Waits Desire, is like the first 50%, the slow burn building up, is like a lot of eye fucking. Like it's very very much building in that slow burn kind of way. And then the Queen's Temptation comes along and probably hits somewhere in the middle, right? Like we get kind of some early action happening, but then we also have the forbidden element come in that sort of means like, oh shit, like there's attraction here, but whoa back, like we can't act on this. So
and the will they, won't they, and how that kind of comes.
Oh, the will they, won't they dance is like one of my favorite things. One of my favorite things to read, one of my favorite things to write. Like I love a good taboo romance. Like that's one of my guilty pleasures as a reader. So being able to, I read a lot of other genres of books that bring that in, because I feel like that's a way that I can kind of strengthen my ability with it, by finding these other kind of, you know, whether it's contemporary, whether it's mafia, whether it's dark romance, you know, those are kind of my heavy influences coming into writing like paranormal and dark fantasy romance.
I'm like, I just am watching you talk and I just like, I'm so obsessed and I just love you so much. And we talked about on previous episodes and book launches, like the courage and the walnutting that it took to really decide, oh my God, I am an author now, like a paranormal fiction author now. And I feel like now we're at book 3 and you're fully embodied and it's fully there. And I'm kind of like burning to ask, is there anything at this kind of phase or stage where you're at where you feel like you do have to like channel that inner Walnut and bring in a bit of courage?
Oh yeah, 100%. Like I still worry that people won't like my books. I still worry that people won't get along with or won't resonate with the characters enough to have them, because it's like we can read a book where we're like, yeah, I didn't quite get on board with that character, or they weren't quite for me, but I still enjoyed the story, right? So I'm always trying to make sure that like I'm walnutting enough that I'm going, hey, it's okay if this book isn't for everyone, right? Like I'm not trying to write a book that appeals to every single person on the planet. I am just trying to write a book for the people who I know are my readers. And even within that spectrum of my readers, people are going to have their favorites and people are going to have their ones that they're kind of like, yeah, I read it the first time and I enjoyed it, but it's probably not like a reread kind of book. And that's okay, because I know as a reader myself, I have my go-to authors. I have my go-to books. I have my books that I've read over and over and over again because I just can't get enough of them. And then I have ones that I read once and I was like, yep, that's cool. And I'll still recommend it to people. Like I still enjoyed it, but it's like on the scale of, how much time we have to allocate to reading.
Yeah.
Is it one that I just kind of lovingly put aside and go, okay, we'll read something else next time, So yeah, that's a lot of my own, I guess, like walnutting is around the confidence to still just show up and do it and be okay with the fact that there are going to be some people who it's not their cup of tea, and that's totally fine. And I don't have to try and convince anybody. But my job is just to get my book in front of the people who do love my book and will love my book. Like that's the only thing I have to do at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And do the plot and the characters justice is my job at the end of the day.
And that's built and built in itself too, right? Like you now have like an army of early readers who are just like ready and waiting for the next one, like it's just gotten bigger, like kind of like, Sweet Inferno was like this little novella, and the just in like actual physical touch, like the sizes are just getting bigger. Everything's getting bigger and greater and deliciouser and more chili emojis. Like it's just getting bigger. And I love it. I love that I'm here for the ride. I will never get off this roller coaster, I don't think. Like I'm enjoying
You're trapped.
So much.
You're trapped, by the way. Even if you try and leave.
I will never try and leave. I will never leave
I've got Laz in like the ultimate Stockholm syndrome, like all the like child lock on all the doors.
I think we've done that to each other actually.
Cannot ever leave me.
Oh, it's so awesome. It's just really awesome. I love being a part of it, but it's cool to be with you on the journey. And I love how it actually just is reflected in how like your audience is growing, how all the reshares that I see on your Instagram and things like that. So I would love if you could let us know where to connect with you further, because I know you've just recently redone your podcast, which is just all things smut and nerding out on books that you enjoy, not even specifically your series, but other authors and things like that. So where can we connect with you on all the things, and if we want to buy the books and everything?
On all the things. So I'm at Elliott Rose Author on all the things, elliottroseauthor.com. And then you can also find the podcast at successful.witches. Successful Witches is the podcast, and we are all about spice, smut, and happily ever afters, because it's basically just everything I'm obsessed with as an author, as an indie author, and sharing that with the world through not only book reviews, where I have the luck of a fellow Walnut, Nicole Middleton, coming along and joining me once a week, where we basically just rave about our favorite books that we've both read. And then also once a week, I have an amazing indie romance author coming on for an interview and sharing just their journey, their books, all the things. It's very, very cool. It's basically just my dream list manifestation of all the authors I want to talk to. So you can come along and join me for all those episodes as well.
Oh, I love it. It's so much fun. The ones that I've listened to thus far is just, I've had a blast. I really feel like I'm in the room there with you. And I'm like, oh, is this what people feel like when they listen to Walnut Wednesday? Because that's how we kind of talk as well. But like, I had such a good time with you and Nicolici. I was like, oh my God, I wish that I was in the room too. But also like, I still feel like I'm in the room. It's a really, really fun podcast, Walnut. So definitely go and follow if any of the topics that we've discussed pique your interest. And if you want to get into the head of our indie author right here. So do you have anything else on your heart that you would like to share for a Walnut listening to us right now?
Oh, I think just with knowing the Walnut space so well and your beautiful community so well, I think my biggest advice is that if you've got something creatively that is tugging at you, follow through on it. Start making some inquiries. Start listening to that nudge, because there's a reason you've got that nudge going on. And it's something I definitely know for me with my author journey that had been nagging at me for a very, very long time. And I had put it aside for a very, very long time because I thought, well, what does this make sense to suddenly drop everything and start writing books? Who am I to start writing books? I have no background in this. I've loved it, and I've always been a writer and I've always been a creative, but I have no formal training in this. I have no one in my life who does this that I can kind of talk to and ask. So, it very much is that kind of sometimes we have to do it scared. And I think that's a big theme that you really celebrate a lot on Walnut Wednesday. So I just wanted to reiterate that I'm here kind of living proof that you can literally know no one and nothing about the industry and still do it your own way and, find your way in your own little way. And it gets to expand with each book going out. So, and don't compare yourself to others.
Oh yeah,
don't compare yourself to other authors. That's been one of my big reminders from the universe over and over and over again. So that would be my final thing. And come and buy The Queen's Temptation.
Yes, absolutely.
Come and meet Niall and Ruby.
100%. I will put all of the links in the show notes, Walnut, and it's already blasted in the Walnut tree if you're in there. So all the places. One final question, which I've kind of already summarized. I can feel myself getting a little bit teary and my throat went all funny. What does being a walnut mean to you, my beautiful sweet angel?
It really is that. Do it scared, follow the nudge. Don't compare yourself to others. Yeah, it's just, there's a reason that you've got that creative thing going on, and your way is going to be your way. And also there is a really beautiful world out there of people who just follow their creativity for the sake of following their creativity. It doesn't have to be something huge. And I think that sometimes in the world of Instagram particularly, we can sometimes feel that pressure that it has to be this big thing that we turn it into, but actually it's okay to just have a creative thing you indulge in. And that's all it needs to be sometimes, and it might turn into something else.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Elliott Rose, for visiting us again and for being here and for all the magic that you put out into the world. It's been such a pleasure to have you back. Come back anytime.
Thank you so much for having me, Les. I love coming on Walnut Wednesday.
Oh, yeah, we'll do this again for sure. No doubt. And Walnut, thank you for being here and thank you for your time with us today. It's always a delicious pleasure to have you along for the ride and for these amazing conversations that I get to have with other Walnuts. So thank you. And I will talk to you next week. And again, Elliott Rose, I love you. You're so sexy. And I'll talk to you soon as well. Bye.